Welcome one more day to Space in Harmonia. I hope you are enjoying the sounds of the insects, the colors of trees, plants, flowers, the songs of the birds. It's very beautiful to walk in this environment. And I do it like this, in silence, to adopt a receptive attitude and feel the spirit of life within myself. I hope you can feel it as well. We also have to notice that there is life in animals as well, and we have to respect the vibration of life, which has its own language, as we have seen, its own cycles. But we have to distinguish, because nature can be very deceptive. Actually, today I'm going to give several keys of understanding so that we can distinguish between synchronicities that are inspired by the spirit of life and certain coincidences that belong to this world and can lead us into confusion and chaos. I do this in response to a very interesting question that Kyle Matthias from All Seeing One podcast sent to me by email the other day. He has been experiencing many coincidences and synchronicities, parallel quantum movements, as he calls them. And he was asking how to distinguish between those synchronicities that can be inspired by Jesus and the Father, as he says, and which ones comes from the spirits of error. So we have to understand what's a spirit of error and how they operate. But first of all, we should remember the words of the Master. He said, "My words are spirit and life." Now, most Christians think he was referring to the words in the Bible, the words attributed to Yeshua, Yeshu, whatever you want to call him. But that phrase means what it says. My words are spirit and life. So the words of the true master of life is the spirit of life. Is a vibrant, intelligent energy that lifts us up and moves us beyond ordinary language. He was not referring to human language, not even to Hebrew or Aramaic. Hebrew and Aramaic are very important languages. I have studied them. It is said that Aramaic explains the Hebrew. As you may know, Hebrew is comprised of 22 letters that represent the DNA of manifestation. Actually, it has been proven that they represent frequencies of vibration. There is even a Kabbalist called Stan Tenen who showed how the Aramaic versions of the Hebrew letters can be representations of spinning sequences in a vortex. So different snapshots of the spin of a vortex represent the movement of energy. So even the Hebrew letters would be pointing to something beyond our ordinary words. And we have to understand this within ourselves. So this is not a question of looking for the divine word in sacred texts, not even the Hebrew version of the Bible. And notice how most translations are different, because they mirror the ideologies of different religious movements. Even the Bible written in Hebrew has a certain fixed interpretation, which was made by the Masoretes, the scribes in the 9th century AD, and they put certain dots to fix one interpretation. In Hebrew, one word can be pronounced differently, and it means different things. So this is a way of ruling out many other meanings. That's the reason why the Essenes never put dots, never fix any pronunciation, because the Torah, or the Tanakh in general, mirrors the understanding, the level of consciousness and conscience of the one who reads. Now, in the same way, we must interpret everything around, even our feelings and emotions and thoughts. But the only way of not being deceived is being inspired by the spirit of life itself, which has its own alive consciousness and conscience. Consciousness is self-knowledge. Conscience is knowing what's the correct action, and it keeps us from being deceived. Actually, there are at least 5 types of deceiving spirits. This is even explained in Hebrew wisdom very well. Some of them are called Nephilim, fallen ones, and they are associated to those type of spirits that fell in ancient times, incarnating in human bodies when they were told not to do so, but they thought they could elevate this world, and they became deceived by carnal passions. It is said that they fell in love with the daughters of Adam, with human women, even though they were sons of Elohim, the sons of the gods. So spirits that descended from highly evolved humanoids that were not physical in the beginning. They had different bodies, but some of them mix up with this world, and their progeny, which are the descendants of Adam, the fallen Adam, started to incarnate in human bodies, becoming obsessed with this world of materiality. And obviously sexuality was one of the traps. I don't think it was referring just to falling in love with women, but with women and men instinctively. Because the daughters of Adam are human beings. We are daughters of Adam, and sons of Adam would be our spiritual masculine part. Now, other type of spirits are the Giborim, the powerful ones, because they seek for positions of power to dominate. We find them in politics all over, in banks and other oligarchies, and they are ruling since ancient times. They operate in the unconscious of human beings, not all human beings, but those powerful human beings that believe to be in control, even though they are just puppets of this world. Then we have the so-called Anakim, which are regarded as violent spirits. They belong to gigantic people that existed in the past. Those people built up megaliths, and they were very strong and very aggressive. And they also operate in certain people that find pleasure in causing pain to others, and they cause many conflicts and wars all over. Then we have the Rephaim, a word that comes from Repha, to heal. And they are called so because in the past they taught humanity how to find certain natural healings, use plants and even sorcery or witchcraft in order to heal up certain ailments. And this does not mean all natural healings are bad or evil. The deception is when you think that what heals is something external. That was the idea. They told humans that healing was in certain arts and practices, when healing comes from wholeness, the wholeness of life brought by the Spirit of life. Even in the book of Revelation it is said that the leaves of the tree of life are for the healing of the nations, and those leaves are aspects in our own being. Obviously, plants can be healing, but I can assure you that no one can heal an ailment with just a plant. You can help a certain process of healing by using certain substances, but healing is more a process of resting and being filled with vitality. And the only way of accomplishing that is by resting, by not manifesting certain negative thoughts and emotions, and by having a positive attitude, a true motivation of life, something that helps you keep ticking, something that moves you to live with energy. Even intelligent fasting is very important. I have been 14 hours without eating, and I won't probably eat until 2 hours from now, so that I have 16 hours of intermittent fasting, and this helps the body to regenerate, to get rid of excess waste. I feel vibrant, vital. I didn't have breakfast. I don't have breakfast usually. I don't eat as much as I ate in the past, only 2 meals a day. Maybe something as a snack in between, but I try not to eat as before, because I realize that the spirit of life flows better through us when we are not full. So it's not a question of taking things, which is the deception of those spirits. And finally we have the Amalekim, the spirit of Amalek. Amalek has the same geometric value as Safek, doubt in Hebrew. So they are spirits that infuse doubt in people. They say, don't study that teaching, it's from the devil. Don't go with that person, he is evil. If you study those things, you will go to hell. You all know all these attitudes. They come from religious people, religious-minded people that want to keep you away from true light, because they sense that truth can destroy them. They only want teachings that validate their own mindset. Anyway, they are inspired by the spirit of Amalek. There are certain spirits that try to keep us away from the truth, because they know that when we know the truth, we are free. And when we are free, we are no longer slaves of darkness. So they need to keep people in a state of ignorance and fear. And this is why the spirit of Amalek is the most dangerous and subtle. Now, notice how these types of spirit can organize certain coincidences. For instance, the spirit of lust infused by the Nephilim can lead people to find a man or a woman that become a temptation for them, and they can organize certain coincidental circumstances. They can lead people to positions of power so that they can climb in positions in a company or any other business, and they are just being used for certain purposes that the person ignores very often. They can also be led to a certain religious movement, and they find coincidences in books, and they say, well, God is speaking to me. I found this person told me to read this, and when I read that book, I found a sentence that was related to something I was thinking. But they don't realize there are spirits that can read your mind, and they can organize certain circumstances so that you think all that is divine. Actually, there are circumstances that can appear to be divine or supernatural, related to something deeper. It comes to mind the case of contactees, people who claim to be in contact with extraterrestrials or beings from other dimensions. And some cases are true. I think they are true testimonies, but this does not mean they are divine. I remember the case of a man who, in some circumstances, which I don't remember, was approached by a person, and they became friends. And over time, this person turned out to be very enigmatic. he knew details of his life that were very difficult to know. He used to appear in very coincidental circumstances, and it's not the only testimony. There are many like this. Sometimes the contactees are given objects that turn out to be very important in their life. They symbolize something deep, and maybe it's a symbol that appears in coincidental circumstances over and over again. So the life of these individuals is packed with coincidences, and many of them even believe that they are being divinely guided by these beings, some of which look like us, or at least they are not so much different. Some of them are described with blue eyes and tall. And I think there are actually people from other effusions, other ages, that are co-inhabiting with us, and they can even cross certain dimensions, but they are as trapped as humans in the matrix. They might have a greater technology and maybe a greater understanding of certain laws, but not necessarily a greater understanding of life and true love. This is the question. They can perform certain magical operations, and they can even bring certain miracles, but this does not mean they are more evolved. Curiously, many of these contactees always receive news about future catastrophes and cataclysms, even though they never happen. But it seems the so-called extraterrestrials are obsessed with catastrophes. And it's as if they wanted to promote a certain timeline. I think they probably want to move humanity into conditions of catastrophe so that they can take over and infuse the type of technological society which they know very well because they belong to a different age and they want humans to adopt their culture. Many authors focus on catastrophism based on coincidences in myths and also certain ideas inspired by spirits of error or even other races. But they all are wrong because there are many futures. And people believe them without realizing that it's not possible to predict a future catastrophe because there are many timelines and many futures. And it all depends on how humanity is interacting with nature. We can even be determining the reality we experience by a certain attitude, because our soul somehow projects the experiences we have. So the degree of understanding determines the life we live. This is why I never pay attention to catastrophic news. Months ago, I was told in the YouTube comments that there was going to be a catastrophe in March 2021. Well, that date is gone already. The comment said that there was going to be a pole shift and that the Anunnaki were going to take control of the Earth. And maybe that's the goal of some of these entities. Now, sometimes authors claim to receive the information from confidential sources, military sources, which somehow are preparing for a future catastrophe. And here in Spain there is a very famous author, J.J. Benítez. He wrote Caballo de Troya, which I already mentioned in other videos. And he has recently written a book called Gog, G-O-G, where he says that in 2027 there is going to be a huge catastrophe because an asteroid is going to crash against the coast of Cuba. And millions of people are going to die. And supposedly this pandemia thing is just a preparation organized by the military to get the population ready for something greater, which would be taking place in 2027. And many people are believing this because he claims the information is true, is not fiction. And this is how many people are deceived. It's not intelligent to promote this sort of catastrophic news. Remember how in 2012 there were many prophecies about the end of the world, and some of us even saw 2012 as a sort of limit or wall. What will happen after 2012? There was much speculation about the end of the world, catastrophes caused by earthquakes, solar flares. There was even a movie in Hollywood about that. And look what happened in 2012. I remember the case of Patrick Gerald, who wrote a very famous book about 2012 because he had dreams about a catastrophe caused by a coronal mass ejection from the sun. And there was even a documentary where he was filmed at home in Holland, and he showed his drawings of the dreams. He told details about the content of these dreams, and he was convinced that there was going to be a catastrophe. He was telling people to get ready, even in some TV programs in Europe. And many people organize certain groups of survival. But 2012 came, and this man had to apologize because obviously he was wrong. And maybe he was perceiving something from the future, but maybe it was another future, another timeline. As I said, there are many timelines, and we live the one with which we are vibrating. So be careful with what you think and feel, because you might be living something in tune with it. If you live in fear, you will attract conditions of aggression or even an accident. It's not necessarily a catastrophe, but it's something vibrating with your heart and your mind. It is important to understand the language of nature, and obviously there are indications that there might be some catastrophes, but they have been part of humanity since long ago. Humanity has survived solar flares, earthquakes, comets, and maybe in some timeline humanity is destroyed by some of these events. But it's more important to understand the cycles, rhythms of nature, and to feel the vibrations. This is something that we can even calculate. For instance, if you sum up all the digits in the year you were born, you will get the potential. For instance, I was born in 1982. So summing up, I get 20. And when I sum up 20 to that year, I get 2002. Well, that was my first year of change. If I do the same, I get 2006, which was my second year of change. It means that in those periods, energy increased, so I had to be attuned. And I remember that in 2002, I experienced a certain change, even in my body. I lost weight. In 2006, I finished the career in the university, and I was pushed to certain changes in my life, and I experienced certain disorientation. And there were other years of change after that, in which I had to increase my level of activity. For instance, this year, 2021, is a year of change for myself, but also for all humanity, because it sums up 5. And as we saw, 5 has to do with changes. Coincidentally, we are in May, so the 5th month of a year that sums up 5. So get ready for changes, for an increasing vibration, and this means you have to be attuned focused. Otherwise, the increasing of energy can make you sick because it gets stagnated. So energy has to be flowing. You can also calculate your age of transformation, summing up all the digits of your birth date, one by one. In my case, it's 30. And what a coincidence, I turned up 30 in 2012. And from that point onwards, I experienced a certain disorientation because I was not attuned. And I was getting sicker and sicker until in 2016 I experienced an outburst of health problems. In 2014 I broke the hips. So in this period I was not attuned because I lost my aim, my divine mission. I thought I was not good enough, I was not ready, that I didn't know. When all those are just beliefs, don't believe those who tell you are shit, that you are not enough, that you are imperfect. No. If you have received the Spirit of Life, and the Spirit of Life is in you, that Spirit is your true self, and it's perfect. It's full of wisdom and understanding. It's full of light that nothing can give you, the light that you truly are. As the Master said, I am the light of the cosmos, and you are the light of the cosmos. Matthew 5:23, I think. But remember, the words we find in sacred texts are just hints of something deeper. Even myths speak of something unspeakable. Myth comes from mutos, which is mute, silent, and miain, which is to be quiet. Because the Spirit of Life is felt in silence. We have to go beyond words and move with a divine action that transforms our life and the world around us. Once the light grows in us, we must become an inspiration for others without falling into the traps of the world, which are full of synchronicities, but they are not really the synchronicities of life. The true life within us is what helps us go beyond the synchronic movements of a deceptive world. So the next day, I'm going to explore the truths and falsehoods regarding the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. There is a lot to say about that, because there are many teachings about these ideas, and not all of them are in tune with the truth. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. If you find this video inspiring, give thumbs up, subscribe to support the channel, click on the bell if you want weekly notifications, leave your comments and questions if you wish, and let's keep feeling the Spirit of Life, opening a space for the true love without conditions, the unmodified life, integral consciousness and conscience in deep blissful serenity.